Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Kamoya. Shout out to Juliet. Thank you. I'm glad you like my channel. Shout out to Alina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Harley. Shout out to Olivia. Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. I pronounced it correctly? Okay, Alina then. Thank you. Welcome. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Thomas. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Khalees. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Shavi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anvita. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lara. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Ray. Oh, Raylan. Shout out to Pearl. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Gia. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Farwa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anora. Shout out to Catherine. Shout out to Ariana. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Ariadne. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kara. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Chandler. Shout out to Aspen. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Azur. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Nadine. Or Nadine. Sorry if I mispronounce her name. Shout out to Madison. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Marley. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Jaslyn. Shout out to Desi. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to Davina. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Jersey. Shout out to Marissa. Shout out to Quinn. Shout out to Dunveer. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Ven. Shout out to Alexis. Shout out to Esther. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Lavinia. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Elliot. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Jess. Shout out to Amelia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to April. Shout out to Lizzie. Shout out to Asher. Shout out to Lily. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to McKinley. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Prince. Shout out to Jeslyn. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Brooklyn. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Malay. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Arissa. Shout out to Tanvi. Whoops. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Aria. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Donna. Shout out to Cordelia. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Michael. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Janice. Shout out to Elijah. Shout out to Jade. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to Taj. Shout out to Joel. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Hafiz. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zoila. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thank you for asking. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to AJ. Shout out to Kiana. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out and support as well. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Shout out to Cynthia. Shout out to Sage. Shout out to Raha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to Marcos. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Athena. Shout out to Paloma. Shout out to Romy. Shout out to Eliza. Shout out to Noelle. Shout out to Dahlia. Shout out to Vanessa. Shout out to Amory. Shout out to Adele. Shout out to Eden. Shout out to Thiago. Shout out to Ramona. Shout out to Dominic. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Malaya. Shout out to Karis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Karis. Shout out to Eve. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Dawn. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Koraya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kaisley. Shout out to Emiliana. Thank you for showing me how to pronounce your name. Shout out to Cambry. Shout out to Noah. Shout out to Esmeralda. Shout out to Zion. Zane. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Daryl. Shout out to Hadley. Shout out to Tegan. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Ben. Shout out to Star. Shout out to Layla G. Shout out to Cam. Shout out to Nessie. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Ariella. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Clara. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Roshan. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Casey. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Artemis. Shout out to Mackenzie. Shout out to Leslie. Shout out to Thea. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Alicia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Salome. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Dashley. Shout out to Kimberly. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Joseph. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Danellis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Zandria. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Angela. Thank you for your patience. Shout out to Alora. Shout out to Jimena. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you everyone for your patience. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Journey. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Tate. Shout out to Leslie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Elise. Shout out to Zion. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Seva. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Juliana. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Romina. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Kendall. Shout out to Delana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Nabi. Shout out to Derek. Shout out to Adriel. Shout out to Emma. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Sean. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Keyshawn. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kendall, I got you. Shout out to Shannon. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jace. Whoops, Jace. There we go. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Rihanna. Shout out to Peranza. Shout out to Darian. Or Darian. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Cambry. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Also, thank you for taking the time to write your name. I try to write as fast as I can, so thank you for your patience. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Miles. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Sania. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Kathy. Shout out to Kim. Shout out to Lucas. Shout out to Leslie. Shout out to Enrique. Shout out to Mackenzie. Did I spell it correctly? Shout out to Freya. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Jen. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Kimberly. Shout out to Owen. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Uriah. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Nalana. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Samara. Shout out to Lunar. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Tina. Shout out to Lillian. Shout out to Leslie, I got you. Shout out to Derek. Oops. Shout out to Majesty. Shout out to Macy. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Trace. Shout out to Skyla. Shout out to Rachel. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sella. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Serena. Shout out to Raven. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Liz. Shout out to Methus. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Vera. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Zahara. Shout out to Lulu. Shout out to Jewel. Shout out to Amaris. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Milan. Shout out to Belly. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Malaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lydia. Shout out to Ramoni. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Cole. Shout out to Kendall. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Nathan. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Cecilia. Shout out to Lele. Shout out to Alana. Thank you everyone for your patience. Shout out to Macy. Shout out to Fernanda. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to Beverly. Shout out to Juanita. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Banawa. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Axel. Shout out to Juliana. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Rachel. Shout out to Callie or Collie. Shout out to Cliff. Shout out to Harmony. Whoops, messed up. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Aliana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Adia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to what was it? I missed it. Demetra. Shout out to Candice. Shout out to Iris. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Lonnie. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Tiffany. Shout out to Atrisa. Shout out to Callis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the shout outs. Thank you for your patience. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Annabella. Shout out to Time. Shout out to Calvi. Shout out to Catalea. Shout out to Imogen. Shout out to Owen. Shout out to Alexander. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Luis. Shout out to Celestia. Shout out to Paris. Shout out to Cheyenne. Shout out to Cruz, what was it? Cruz Bellies. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Adeline. Happy birthday. Shout out to Dennis. Shout out to Montica. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Hadley. Shout out to Pallavi. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Giada. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Vanya. Shout out to Margaret. Shout out to Igor. Shout out to Rob. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Mallory. Shout out to Sanai, or Sanay. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sierra. Shout out to Mabel. Shout out to Harlow. Shout out to Marissa. Shout out to Rose. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Christina. Shout out to Shiny. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Royce. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Kelly. Shout out to Trina. Shout out to Sydney. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Delaney. Shout out to Seth. Shout out to Liam. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Nate. Shout out to Tavia or Tavia. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Angela. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Skyla. Shout out to supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, something like that. Shout out to Giselle. Whoops, I don't know how to spell Giselle. Oh, there we go. Shout out to Elliot. Shout out to Duran. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Ari. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Vani. Shout out to Kias. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Rena. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Lovebug. Shout out to Kamoya. Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Sarai. Shout out to Beatrice. Shout out to Eric. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Addie. Excuse me. Shout out to Vanya. Shout out to Liani. Shout out to Egypt. Shout out to Gemma. Shout out to Atrisa. Shout out to Amna. Shout out to Brinley. Shout out to Brinley. Shout out to Constanza. Shout out to Iana. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Imperial. Shout out to Rael. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Izara. Shout out to Greta. Shout out to Skyla. Shout out to Grim. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Aisha. Shout out to Ari. Shout out to Kingston. Shout out to Zamira, or Zamira. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out as well. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Kendra. Shout out to Destiny. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Ronak. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Giannis. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Lear. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Shaya. Shout out to Prince. Shout out to Dustin. Shout out to Gabriella. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Blakely. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Sunandita. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Chip. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Bryson. Shout out to Ronnie. Shout out to Jaden. Blakely, I got you. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alexi. Shout out to Eunice. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Joseph. Shout out to Cosmo. Shout out to Cheryl. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jada. Shout out to Mika. Shout out to Devesh. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Valentina. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Clover. Shout out to Miles. Shout out to Riaz or Riaz. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Gabe. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Hasanat. Shout out to Azul. Shout out to Mila, or sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Donna, or Dana, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Soph. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Sylvie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Danny. Shout out to Ian. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sanae. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Philly. Shout out to Isaac. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Rachel. Whoops, how do you spell Rachel? Rachel, can you put your name again? Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Zara. Shout out to, thank you, Rachel. There we go. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Mildred. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Steven. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Philip. Shout out to Tilly. Shout out to Donna, or Dana, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Imani. Shout out to Annalie. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Imani, I got you. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Barbie. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Pullman. Thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Pullman. Shout out to Piana. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Coco. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Jamira. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Lyndon. Shout out to Ruben. Shout out to Aspen. Shout out to Robin. Shout out to Donica. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Sherlyn. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Maritza. Shout out to Rylan. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Leslie. Shout out to Manon. Shout out to Gemma. Shout out to Miri. Shout out to Rayansh. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Rumo. Shout out to Sally. Shout out to Ava. Oh, I already have Ava. Shout out to Rumi. Shout out to Caesar. Shout out to Mariah. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Marvin. Shout out to River. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the shout outs. I live stream every day, so please subscribe if you want to know when I'm gonna go live. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. Have a great day or have a great night. Bye.